All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Am I still being seen? Okay, sorry. This is Joel Drucker. Welcome to the Berkeley Tennis Club, to our second edition of Angles and Insights. And Lisa Parks, our board member, was going to give an introduction, but I'll say a little bit about Lisa. The reason we had Lisa, who's going to give the introduction, was because Lisa was a beneficiary of our guest tonight. Lisa was born in 1971, the first full year of women's professional tennis. So that was pretty interesting. And Lisa went on to have an outstanding career as one of the top juniors in Canadian tennis, later lettered at UC Berkeley, and played some professional tennis. So in a way, Lisa is kind of the descendant of our guest tonight. And now I'm going to talk a little about tonight. And our event is called Berkeley, the 60s and the Dawn of Women's Professional Tennis, a remarkable series of people, events, and all things that came together and fueled the growth of the entire women's sports movement. You're going to be hearing a lot tonight about the original nine women's tennis players who in September 1970 took a courageous stand to start what was then called the Virginia Slim Circuit. This coming July, the entire group of nine women will be inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame, the highest honor in tennis. Of their many accomplishments, one major byproduct of the original nine was the creation of the Women's Tennis Association, the WTA, an organization whose first president happens to be a Berkeley Tennis Club member. So here's something also remarkable. Of those nine, four of them have a strong connection to Berkeley Tennis Club, including our two guests this evening. And here's another interesting tidbit. The ninth also had a 10th, a leader who we're going to hear about, who ran the tour, including finding the most important thing you need for a tour, a sponsor, a title sponsor. And that person was Gladys Heldman, who was the founder, publisher, and editor of the most prominent tennis magazine of the time, World Tennis. Gladys came to tennis a bit later than most people and was taught to play on court 2 at our club by the legendary Tom Stowe. Later, Gladys's daughter, Julie, became one of the original nine, and for a time practiced extensively at the BTC. So let me now introduce our two guests. The first, in red, you'll see on the screen, is a San Francisco native who, her own right, earned a spot in the Hall of Fame in 1996. As a singles player, she was ranked as high as number 3 in the world, twice reaching the US Open singles final. In doubles, she won 12 Grand Slams and a staggering 112 doubles titles. Only Martina Navratilova has won more. And she also played a lot at our club. So please welcome, however we can, Rosie Casals.
Thank you. Nice being with you.
Great to be here with you, Rosie. Our second guest was a member of our club, and she was a great player too. How good was she? Well, in 1968, this woman won the Junior Wimbledon title, the US National Juniors, and was ranked number 1 in America in the juniors. She also twice reached the round of 16 in the singles at Wimbledon. So in this case, I'll say, welcome back to BTC, Kristy Pigeon.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you, Kristy. So we're going to talk until about 5:45, and then we'll funnel in some questions from people that will be coming in through the chat function. I'm going to start with you, Kristy. They say the Battle of Waterloo was won on the playing fields of Eton. So in your case, Wimbledon might have been won, to a certain degree, at the Berkeley Tennis Club. How did your experiences at the club kind of fuel what happened for you at Wimbledon?
I was fortunate. The year before I went to play in Wimbledon in 1968, I was still in high school, and I'd drive to Berkeley almost every afternoon to play with Billie Jean, who was recovering and not traveling at the time. Her husband was going to law school. So Billie Jean would get out of bed literally and come practice with me and spur me on. And every now and then Rosie would come over and we'd play 2 against 1. And when it was my turn to hit by myself against Billie Jean and Rosie, Rosie gave me the nickname of Moose. And little did she know at the time that moose are actually very, very fast animals. But I was given that nickname because I didn't want to run for the balls. I'd keep asking them to hit them a little bit closer to me, so I wouldn't have to work so hard. But
You
I have a
were
lot of fond
you were
memories
big.
from
I mean,
playing at the Berkeley Tennis Club. Another one was playing with Reverend George Titman, who I played with quite frequently, and he was a great guy, a character at the Berkeley Tennis Club, and well-respected man that has passed away, but I still have very fond memories of him.
So this is 67, 68, and they're two of the best players of the world. Billie Jean is #1 in the world. Let's Rosie, what made Kristy a great player?
Well, she was a lefty to start out with, and she had a pretty good kick serve. So, and good volleys. Tall, like I said, that's why I named her Moose, because she's big. She's big. And she covered a lot of courts. So yeah, we all always liked serve and volleyers, and she was a server and volleyer. So those were always good to cheer on and become friends with, and make sure you had them for doubles.
So Kristy, tell us a little about Rosie as a player. What was Rosie's playing style?
Well, when I first met Rosie was coming up in the juniors, and then also at San Francisco at Golden Park, and she was pretty intimidating because she just was this little spitfire, shorter than me. So I kind of thought, well, since I'm bigger, maybe I'd have a chance. But no, she was tough, and won the junior events coming up. And since I was a couple years younger, I really had to play against her, which was great. But I always really liked her because she was so down to earth and said exactly what she felt and expressed herself well. And also, she introduced me to riding horses. I don't know if you remember that, Rosie, but we rode horses together.
Horses, didn't I?
Yeah. And we rode horses together. And then later on in my life, I went on to own, oh my goodness, 11 horses, and started a therapeutic horse riding program for challenged individuals. So I could say,
So I pointed you in the right direction, right?
Rosie kept me in the straight and narrow path, and where I easily could have slid off the other side into being an ornery kid. So,
But Rosie's game, Rosie, give us a little more about Rosie's game. Kind of a dynamic playing style, wouldn't you say, Kristy?
Rosie was very consistent, but I would say her strength was her ability to scramble on the court, to get a lot of balls back, rush the net. And even though she wasn't as tall as I was, she seemed very tall on the court just because she could cover it well, and very, very quick hand-eye coordination.
Good volleyer, kind of a shot maker at times.
Great at the net, but I think that's why she was sought after as a doubles partner, and why she and Billie Jean did so well. Although I have to get this in sometime, I'm going to do it right now.
Do it.
At the Pacific Coast International, after we were in Houston for the first breakaway tournament, my doubles partner, Leslie Hunt, and I beat Billie Jean and Rosie in the semifinals, and then went on to beat Judy Taggart-Dalton and Leslie Bowery in the finals. That win, even though it was in doubles, I won't forget it ever.
Well, I'm glad that we made your, happy in your career and stuff like that. It's always good to know that, I've done good for you, haven't I, Moose?
Well,
yeah, you've been great.
This is a good segue because Rosie, that was 1970 at the club. You came to the club many years earlier. In fact, why don't you take us back to 1964, where you met this the player from Long Beach, and who you were in 1964? And
so when I played, I couldn't remember. I have the picture with my friend Glo Seegerquist. She was my partner, and we were playing Billie Jean at that time, Moffitt, and Carol Codwell, so from Southern Cal. And I remember, walking in that little grass area just by, in front of the clubhouse, and I saw like 4 or 5 rackets, in each of their arms. And what was most impressive was their Fred Perry wear. I mean, BJM on one, and the other one C C, which was Carol Codwell. So, I mean, it was so impressive with the little reefs around. I don't know, you guys, a lot of you may remember that, but for, you know, the younger ones, you wouldn't remember. But that was like the neatest thing you could ever see was Fred Perry wear with monogram with their initials. You know, I thought, oh, whoa, you know, this is what it's supposed to look like to be a pro. So, you know, got on the court and we did very well. I don't remember the score, but maybe one was 7-5 or 6-4. But I think I left an impression on Billie Jean, which is good because, you know, like you, I had a chance to play with her because of what happened, because I lost to her and Carol.
Right. And so because you're about the 1964, you were about 16 years old, and she's 20, 21.
Was I that old?
What?
I don't know. 64. I'm 72 now. I don't know. You do the math, but it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
you were 16 then.
16. Okay. So I felt like I was 13. I tell everybody I was 13. Anyway, so that was the first time we met, and she said, well, you know, you're going to be good. Keep it up. And next time I see you, maybe, you know, we'll play together or whatever. I said, okay, yeah, you know, it was good. Looking forward to it.
And you became one of the best doubles teams ever. But let's to fast forward. In 1966, Billie Jean and her husband moved north to Berkeley. They were living across the street from the club. You came over to practice, and it was also a big time, and the world is changing. Like Billie Jean once said, you could hear the music in the air, the whole spirit. And then 1968 happens, and this tennis goes from being an amateur sport to a pro sport. Rosie wins the Wimbledon doubles with Billie Jean in 68. Billie Jean wins the singles. Kristy wins the juniors. So three Wimbledon titles were all part of our club at that time. And so Rosie, what went on when you would come over to the club? Would you practice with Kristy and Billie Jean and other people like Lynn Raleigh, our former pro?
Yeah, primarily at that time we practiced. I practiced with Billie Jean and of course you know, the Moose over there. And you know, Lynn I saw every once in a while, but I remember the other guy, Hugh Ditzler and Jacobus, and you know, the Hoogs. So yeah, there was a lot of action. Maine and Ditzler, and there was always a lot of tennis to play. And so I would say that was the beginning of starting to get a little disciplined, because I'd never seen anybody practice so much. I mean, we played a lot, didn't we, Moose? But to practice in a different way, you know, was something new. So
yeah, especially the 2-on-1 drill was a great drill, because the one by themselves would get quite a workout.
Oh, for sure.
So Kristy, I want to look at the summer of 1968, and you turn 18, and this gets to to some ways to the growth of pro tennis. You won the Wimbledon juniors, but give us a sense of how you were viewing your prospects at that point. You're kind of in a rock and a hard place about where the tennis was going. So why don't you take us to that?
Yeah, well, what was interesting is that I didn't really focus on high school because I was so busy playing tennis, and I'd set such serious goals. And I'd get out of school at 12 and head to the Berkeley Tennis Club. But after I reached those goals and won the juniors and also won the Eastern Grass Courts and a couple other major women's tournaments that year, the Welsh Open, I wanted to go to college. And I thought, well, maybe there'll be an opportunity to get a scholarship. And I talked to Stanford, and they said that they would let me in if I promised to play on the women's team. And I said, well, who's on the women's team? And there were people I never heard of. And likewise, around the country, there really was no collegiate sports for women. And this is in contrast to collegiate sports for the men, because there were top players like Stan Smith and Bob Letts that were able to go to college in Southern California. But for me, there was absolutely no opportunity to play at a high level of tennis. I mean, I went to Mills College and UC Berkeley, and even at that time, the men's team was about my only option, and they didn't really want to play with me. So I was at a crossroads, and I got a lot out of tennis because it was before it was professionalized. I saw Billie Jean and Rosie were better players than I was, and I didn't see that they were struggling too. They weren't making a living, and times were tough. So I said, well, I better focus on school. But then when Virginia Slims came along, we started the tour, that all changed. And it became tougher for me to try to do both. And my tennis suffered a little, but I also developed an attitude. And I don't want to say women's lib, because one of the quotes that I've made is that I thought by demonstrating the power of women through sport was a lot more effective than burning bras. And that's a quote that I've made a couple of times. And I think what we did in breaking away was important, but because of my education, I'd been exposed to some of the women's livers and was supportive of them as well in their movement.
So Kristy, you're the top junior in the world, and you're probably one of the top 20 players in the world around that time. And in the meantime, Rosie, you're one of the top 3 or 4 players in the world. Give us a sense of those early years of open tennis, as it were, of what was going on. I mean, you joined, there was a group called the National Tennis League, and that was kind of like a barnstorming group that you were part of in 68, 69. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, when just before open tennis came into the picture, we, Billie Jean, myself, Frankie Durr, and Ann Jones signed contracts with National Tennis League. Labor, Roseville, Gonzalez, not Trayvon, but several other, Jimenez, were pros, and we were the only 4 women pros. And we got a contract. We felt that that was the right way to go. All this amateurism, shamateurism, and registered players, and all this confusion about what was a pro and what wasn't. We wanted to be pros. We wanted to get paid. And I think that really gave us some leverage and understanding of what was to come further down the road in 1970. So it was an experience, because we came from being able to play on in country clubs, having pretty much the best and red carpet, to basically playing in the south of France and some of Italy, and in maybe warehouses where they just laid the court down, painted the lines. You had minimum fans watching the tennis, but boy, let me tell you, it was great tennis. And we traveled, and it was just like a road show. Every night we'd play, get up in the morning, either drive, take the train. And it was a lot of hard work. And I, both all of us, the 4 of us, thought we made a mistake. I mean, I thought it was going to be fun being a pro, but it was hard work. But it really prepared us for the future. And as open tennis got bigger with more prize money, the guys were getting a bigger share of it than the women. And that is really what started to open our eyes and realize that this was not the way to go, to play with the men, because we were playing with the men. We were not getting any good scheduling. At that time, Billie Jean was number 1, and Dennis Ralston would be on center court, and she would not. He'd have the best time, and she wouldn't. So the women were realizing that they needed to do something, and that whole movement started around that summer in the 70s. And
let's do that. Let's get that. You came right to the next point. Go to like the summer of 70, and you guys get some pretty news about a long-standing LA tournament that preceded the tournament in Berkeley. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And
Pacific. Yeah, the Pacific Southwest. Jack Kramer, that was his tournament prior to Pacific Coast, and everybody played. And so that summer, leading into Forest Hills and the U.S. Open, we were trying to negotiate with them, asked them if he would give us more prize money. Of course, we wanted equal, but that was never going to be. And he didn't care that it was a 10-to-1 ratio. He didn't care whether he had the women. So that August, September of Forest Hills, 1970, that's when the women got together and said, you know, we gotta band together because you know, this is not good for us. And you know, in came Gladys Hellman, who knew Joseph Coleman III, Virginia Slims, Philip Morris. So, I mean, you know, it's one of those long stories, but I'll keep it short. That's how the Virginia Slims started at the Houston Racquet Club. She agreed to put a tournament together, but of course, in the midst of doing all that, there were, you know, threats by the USTA, you know, sanction and trying to figure out the logistics of it. But somehow we managed, and certainly Gladys Hellman was such a big role in communicating and getting us Philip Morris and Virginia Slims.
Let's perfect. Let's scroll back a little bit to some of these events. And while we're at it, actually, Carrie, why don't you show the picture of the original 9? That's one of the most iconic pictures that I think Rosie and Kristy have probably seen a couple of times. There's the very famous picture. Do you have that, Carrie? Yeah, this picture is the 9. I'm sure. But I want to get back to talk about Gladys Hellman and Kristy. You got to know Gladys. You all knew Gladys well, but Kristy, why don't you give us a little insight as to what kind of person Gladys was and the things that made her almost kind of an inspiration to the whole tour happening?
Yeah, Gladys was my mentor in a number of ways, and we continued a friendship long after I retired from playing tennis. And the first thing she taught me, I think I was a little, I just won the US girls title, and she took me to New York City to a restaurant for lunch, and she taught me that if you're going to have a drink at lunch, you better have a vodka tonic or a martini.
You were 18?
And from then on, she gave me some other serious pointers about how just to deal with life. And she was, I'd have to say, I've been called a free spirit, but I think Gladys was the consummate free spirit, independent thinker, always thinking out of the box, how to get something done. And it was her power of persuasion with Joe Coleman, even though Joe was a devoted tennis fan, which also helped. But I think it was the two of them that really pushed us on our way with Virginia Slims, because Philip Morris did a lot to promote us. They put together press packets, set up meetings. And sometimes we didn't want to go do all these things. Like get up in the morning at 6 o'clock and go talk on a local radio show if we were playing in, say, for example, Milwaukee. You know, but they kept us marching, and eventually more and more people started coming out and developing a greater appreciation for women's tennis.
Kristy, though, now Rosie, you were one of the top 3 players in the world at this time. So you're making money from tennis, but you want to make a living from tennis. So it makes complete sense why you're going to say, yeah, I'm on board with Gladys and other players, and let's go to this, make this event in Houston happen. Kristy, what made you decide? You know, you were facing a lot of crossroads during these years. So what made you decide to hop on board with this? You're 20 years old and in college.
Yeah, well, I was the youngest one, but I figured if we got suspended that I would at least have school to fall back on for a while until things get straightened out. And Gladys convinced me too that this was the right way to go. And we took a serious stand. I think we took a stand that women in sports today still have not done. I mean, if you look at women's soccer and the women's team was #1 in the world last year, or they have been for a number of years. And the men's team is something like 26 and make tons more money than the women do even today, 50 years later, than above what what we did. And I think it's simply because they're unable to get their act together and boycott and protest and really take a stand together. I don't know, maybe Rosie has some insight into that too.
Well,
No, I think that's good. I mean, I just don't think we had a lot of options. I mean, if we did not take a chance, the 9 women, and I always say that it's amazing that we got 9 women to feel the same way and to agree. So that was very brave but we needed to do something. We couldn't remain where we were. We were not getting anything, and this sounded like a really good. How can you not like the idea of Philip Morris, and the marketing machine that they were? And so I think what made it a little scary is all this talk about, well, if you sign or if you play, you're going to be suspended, which we were. So I think that was like, has that happened before? It was a threat, and we defied the threat and said, this is the right thing to do, and we did it. And so, like anything, you got to be on the right side of history, and we were. Things were happening for women with the women's lib that Kristy mentioned, and fighting for equality. It all sort of was there. And we were the only ones that could take that action, and
Yeah.
Rosie, take us to Houston, to that very first event, and for all you know, you played pretty well that week too.
I did, despite all the late night meets, in Gladys's bedroom because remember, we had a proposal also from Larry King and Vandermeer that
right.
we were looking at. We had 2 options, and so we agreed basically on the right one, which was Gladys and Philip Morris. So yeah, so
but you won, just so you know, just Rosie won't say it. Rosie won the tournament that week. Won the first tournament.
I did. That's where we were going to the finish line. And it was I mean, it's always nice to be the first to do anything, so that title is a great title for me. I won the first Virginia Slims, period.
All $1,500 what you went for $1,500, I think you won the first prize?
I made about that $300. We made sure that it was at least $300 more than Stan Smith won, winning the men's singles at the Pacific Southwest.
So now, and just so everyone knows that, so now the Virginia Slim circuit gets underway. This is also the first year that there's no cigarette advertising on television. So Philip Morris, do you guys want to talk? I know you've talked about this before, about your feelings about a tobacco company and yet a great advocate for women's sports.
Well, I can address that a little, because what I saw and what I really liked is, number one, they never asked us to smoke in public. What was nice is in the locker room every now and then, after we'd come in from playing a match, they'd have a bowl of cigarettes and also a big cooler full of, do you remember the little mini Miller High Lifes?
Yeah.
That was another subsidiary of Philip Morris, but they never encouraged us or asked us to do anything like promote their product. But they did promote the fact that women were becoming independent. They can do what they want. If they want to smoke a cigarette, they can. If they want to have a beer, they can. And the Ginny, the Virginia Slims Ginny, I'm sure you've seen the poster where she has a tennis racket in her hand. She has short hair and a cigarette. And she portrays a strong, independent woman. And I strongly identify with that. I think I've kind of been strong to the point of being a little ornery and wanting to do just what I wanted to do. And I think Rosie's that way too. And it's interesting, all 9 of us.
And we got along, right?
Are in our own way, we're very tough. Even if a lot of you know Carrie Melville, who I would say is a very demure, quiet person. But on the inside, I see her when I played her, and I had some close matches, won some, lost some, is she was tougher nails on the inside. And that's what came through. And that's what Philip Morris wanted, and why I think it was a win-win for them. I think with their marketing campaign, it was one of the most successful marketing campaigns that's ever. So kudos to them for making it happen and helping us pave the way to what is now a lot of money in women's tennis.
And just so everyone knows, we're going to go a little bit to that very first year, the first full year, 1971. Rosie, you played between singles and doubles 205 tennis matches.
Wow.
And we're doing front and center with the other 8 promoting the tour. Give us a sense of what your days, nights, and sleep was like then.
Thank God I was young. Well, I mean, you got up in the mornings. If you had a PR, you did radio, you did TV, and that was most of the morning. And sometimes we'd have to play, a pro-am or do a clinic. I mean, we're constantly doing things for tennis, which was, something that we understood. Promotion. That's how we learned that we were not just there to play tennis, but whatever needed to be done to sell the game. And they had a great, like Kristy said, a great campaign, marketing, and they knew how to market to people, and the other parts of it of promoters, finding the promoters, finding that location. I mean, that's all part of it, but they were so involved in everything and the organization that made it run, because we certainly, the women didn't have the staff, but without Philip Morris, we wouldn't be where we are today, for sure.
And so Rosie, just so everyone knows, Rosie, that's 1971, 205 matches. You pretty much kept up that pace for almost another 20 years. I mean, I think I saw you play the Oakland, you and Martina in like 88, 89. So Rosie, you played almost 20 years.
Yeah, that was about my last one. Yes.
You loved it.
And I think that was about the last one. When you get older, it's time, to move on, even if you don't want to. I mean, I still love playing and all that, but there's a young generation coming up, and they're playing a different brand of tennis, and you're starting to see all your friends gone. And it was fun when we were together, and we're involved in all these things together, and played one another, had dinner, practice, everything was together. It was a family. So that changed so much. You felt that it was time to go.
Now, Kristy, though, you made a different decision with your tennis. Take us into that and where you were with your tennis, let's say, after a few years of the pro life.
Well, I bopped back and forth between college. I'd go for a quarter or semester at a time, and then I'd go off and play on a circuit for a while. And it was tough. It was tough while I was in school to get good grades and also have enough time to play. So unfortunately, my tennis, I think, took a back burner, and I wasn't quite able to play as well and as I would have liked to. My game started to slide, but I retired early because I wanted to move on and do some other things. And when I moved to my present home in Sun Valley, Idaho, I developed a tennis school that I ran for 11 years and had at one point 8 tennis pros working for me. And we had week-long clinics and this and that here in Sun Valley. And that was positive. I in the wintertime, I was a ski instructor, so I never looked back on trying to go back on the circuit. But as far as I look back and say, well, what did you learn from tennis? What did you learn from your experiences at the Berkeley Tennis Club and the people you met there? And it paved, definitely all those experiences through tennis gave me I would say willpower, strength, confidence, self-esteem, and things that are needed to be innovative and to try new things. And I think I've been able to do that. Started a couple of businesses, and now I've gone back to my passion, what I majored in college, of building wetlands and doing a lot of habitat restoration, wildlife projects, et cetera. And I don't know if I'd have the impetus to do that if I hadn't had the life skills that I learned through tennis and traveling and being on my own so much, and meeting the people that I met along the way through tennis.
You mentioned that when you and I spoke recently about a trip you took to South Africa when you were playing, and how that in a way helped you, point you towards some stuff. Do you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, well, that was definitely when in college. I was in college. I stopped playing. I stopped going to school to play the South African circuit, which I got my way paid, along with my doubles partner, Denise Carter, who also played quite a bit at the Berkeley Tennis Club because she was from Palo Alto. But I played 4 tournaments in South Africa, and then made arrangements through the National Parks Board of South Africa to go to Kruger National Park and work on a research project on lion-zebra relationships. And to this day, that was one of the highlights of my life. And interestingly enough, the men who lived in the game reserve in South Africa at the time were huge chauvinists. And Denise and I were able to take them out and whip them at tennis, which was a pretty big sport in the game reserve. And we quickly and promptly changed the attitude that these men had towards women. And it opened a lot of doors for us. Every day they wanted to take us out in the veld and work with us and help me with my project. And it worked. It was very, very cool.
So your volleys helped you earn their respect.
Yeah, and I think that's happened. I mean, look at what happened with Billie Jean and Bobby. I mean, we all knew. I mean, Rosie, I think you'd agree, didn't you know for sure that Billie Jean would beat him?
Yeah.
I knew before they played that was going to be a slam dunk, especially since Margaret was a ball of nerves, and I know Margaret and I like her, but I think she should have supported us a little bit earlier than she did. She kind of jumped in when the money was there, as did a few of the other players. And
remember, there were 2 circuits. There was the USTA one that she played on.
Yeah.
Virginia, Yvonne, Chris.
Right.
Were competing, and so when that went by the wayside, she didn't hesitate to come and join us and beat us.
Well, at that point, though, the money was there, right?
The money was there,
and
she had no choice.
We'd gone through all the hardships that we faced. And
absolutely.
Risk of suspension. So it was no wonder that they joined us then.
Well, that's it. You know,
we did the work.
All the hard work had been done by then. Well, listen, you sound like you had a very impressive career, boy. All I did was hit forehands and backhands.
Well, Rosie, Rosie, but you were Rosie, you were front and center when ABC TV for the Battle of the Sexes of the commentary, but you kept playing. Give us a little more of an update on what you've done since you stopped playing tennis. I mean, you're involved with some significant charity. I've attended several of your charity events in the desert. Talk about that and other things you're involved with.
Okay, very quickly. I established a foundation called the Love Tennis Foundation, and for kids. You know, because as many courts as we have here, all the great tournaments like BMP, the kids have no place to play. I mean, everything is a gated community, and so especially in the East Valley and Coachella, so we try and reach out that way and toward the north and Desert Hot Springs, and you know, so it's we try to give free tennis clinics. We give grants out to other junior programs and grassroots programs, and I try and do as much as I can, and I get a lot of volunteers to come help me. So it's been a different experience, especially with the pandemic and everything. During that period when the pandemic was happening, I decided I better start playing some tennis, and I did. And I was working with a couple girls So I got in better shape, and now I can hit the tennis ball again. So that was fun. But yeah, it's a long road.
Great. Well, all right, we're gonna segue a little bit. First, Lisa Parks, you're with us. I'd like you to share a few things with our with our commentators just to close out on this.
Oh, it's my honor. As a BTC board member, I'd just like to thank you so much for this illuminating conversation. I was actually born in 1971 and reaped so many of the benefits. You courageous, gutsy, amazing women paved the way for, not just with the open tennis, but just civil rights in general, particularly with Title IX. And I'm a bit verklempt because I'm just so touched by how humble you are, but you've changed the world. You certainly changed the trajectory of my life. And I just want to say, I think I would get the endorsement of every girl, the millions of girls you've touched, their lives you've changed, on thanking you so much for what you've done for girls in sports, women in tennis, and specifically Go Bears, but also there's one last sort of abstract that I just wanted to mention, is that girls growing up are bombarded with imagery, media, what we're supposed to look like, what we're supposed to act like, what we're supposed to hypersexualize. And the ability to say, I'm an athlete and I can reject all of that because I'm an athlete is so empowering. And it was something that I used in my life to kind of get through the tough times of adolescence and even young womanhood. And as a closing, so many women I know have carried on the fight for equality and inclusion. And I, in my career, have taken that upon myself. So thank you so much. Thank you, Joel. It was really interesting. And I just so deeply appreciate the work you've done. So thank you,
Lisa.
Rosie and Kristy.
Boy, that's hard to come back on that. But, I think we did it because we had to do it. And, a lot of times you didn't think about things. You just did them because you felt they were right. And it's people like you and every generation that comes after you that have to carry this on, that the women's job is never done, and it's not done yet. As you know, we need to have a woman president, and we've had just about everything. Good one's a jerk, and whatever else, But I just think that what you expressed to us, I know I can see that you've been involved and you've carried on our legacy, which is, a wonderful thing. And we thank you for that. And to continue, please, pushing us forward because we still need to be pushed.
We're going to take a few questions now, and just from some of the members that I have that have come in. The first one is from Ellen Carlton, who's a professor at Sonoma State. Either you can add just a simple one. Were you guys able to make a living in those early years? Maybe Kristy, you can speak to that, and Rosie as well.
That's easy for me. Yes and no. I mean, I can remember playing on the Caribbean circuit, getting my airline ticket and all my hotels, and making $400 a week under the table. And for an 18-year-old at that day and age to make $1,200 a month was a lot of money. But then when it became professionalized, for a while there, it was still a struggle. We were playing, if I made it to the quarterfinals, it'd be $2,000 for a week, and having to pay for your own airfare and et cetera, et cetera. It was definitely trying, and compared to what it is today. And there were no endorsements for women. We were lucky. I can remember I was sponsored by Puma shoes and then head rackets and clothes, but that just meant you were on the free list. It didn't mean that you got paid. So things have changed. I would say it's pretty lucrative compared to what it was.
Rosie, any thoughts? I mean,
we had to play a lot. We played doubles and singles in every tournament, and just about every tournament. And you had to get to at least semis or finals to make any money. And so, that was the continuous thing that you knew you needed to get to the top, to the end, or else you couldn't afford necessarily your, hotels and flights and what have you, even though Regina Slims took care of a lot of things, to help us. But again, we were not quite where we needed to be with, sponsorship and endorsements and everything else. But it was growing because Billie Jean was the first one to make $100,000 that next year.
What year was that, Rosie?
I think that was 70. I want to say 71 or 72. What is it?
It was 1971. She
Yeah,
hit it in at the Phoenix. Remember,
Yeah,
it was in Phoenix,
Yeah,
and
she
then
played
it was such a big deal that
Vicky
President
Berner.
President Richard Nixon called her, congratulated
Yeah,
her.
right, exactly. So, so within 1 year, it was possible to make $100,000. Of course, now it's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's got to be 1 million times 3.
Well, that's interesting. I'm reflecting back on what Lisa had said about now gives her strength to be an athlete. And I think in our times, I can remember being teased when I was out jogging or practicing. By boys would tease us because it wasn't cool for women to be athletes. And my mom had always told me, if you want to marry a successful man, you have to go to college. So that was another reason why I never saw that there was that much money in tennis. I thought, well, I better go to college to see if I can find myself a wealthy man.
All you had to do is search some aces.
Yeah, exactly. But that changed fast.
Well, that's the next question. A question from Nancy Ruprecht for our club. Did you think of yourselves as part of the women's movement at the time of the time?
Well, yeah, I did. Absolutely. Gloria Steinem, whatever, marching down, to the Capitol. I wasn't there, but I strongly supported it. I looked at myself as one of the, women fighting for equality and a place, to be able to talk and be accepted. And, yeah, I certainly felt a part of it. I don't know. How about you?
No, absolutely. I felt a part of that in a strong way. I'd heard Gloria Steinem when my freshman year in school, heard her speak.
Wow.
And then I also was part of the environmental movement where women at that time were vowing not to have children to strive towards Ehrlich's Stanford professor's philosophy of zero population growth. So, and then also going to Berkeley, of course, I was caught up in all kinds of political motivated
Right.
events.
Exactly. That was our time.
Absolutely.
So, question from Tom Graber. Who could be the new Gladys to lead the next generation to equality? Or is there no Gladys?
There's only one. There's only one, and that was Gladys. And it really is hard because, again, we're at a different time in history too. Things happen for a reason, and right now, if you were going to ask for more prize money, then I would say most people would say, well, aren't you happy with where you are? And they'll probably say no, right? Because the prize money's still going up, isn't it?
Sure.
Yeah, it's still going up. So that's the good news.
Yeah, part of the problem in the world is there's really not a women's leader. You all remember Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In. And I don't think we as a group would ever endorse that book because we didn't lean in. We pushed hard, we shoved. And that's what it takes. And for me personally, if Billie Jean wasn't so immersed in just tennis, she could be a women's figurehead, be not only women, but just a figurehead for equal rights, because I think she has really immersed herself. I was very proud of her when I heard her talk at our 50th reunion event that we had online, and we had a Zoom chat with quite a few women CEOs from various companies like Altria. And I was proud of her for the research she's done and the stance she's taken to push equality in life forward, not just for women or not just for men or for blacks, but equality for everyone. So my kudos go off to her for
No,
following that
she's
path.
been doing that for the last 10 years. I mean, she
Yeah.
is someone who has gone beyond, sports and tennis for certain, and has reached out to a huge, globally, and represents a lot of the, fight for equality for women and transgender, and, and everything that is now part of change. So, yeah, she's done a great job. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, just a couple more questions. This is from someone I know, I think you know, Rosie. Barry Baskin says to say hello.
Very.
He says,
Wait until Billie Jean hears that I've spoken to you, because she speaks of you all the time.
Barry, hi, Rosie, says Barry. Have you had a chance to see the upgraded and improved Golden Gate Park tennis courts? And of course, this is where you play. And maybe, Rosie, you tell people a little bit what that place means to you.
Well, no, I have not had the opportunity to go over there and take a look at the beautiful. I do get their emails, and, so I'm aware of their programs and tournaments and everything that they're doing up there. But I hope to get up there and check things out. I haven't been there in a very long time.
Okay, this is what probably maybe, I don't know which one of you might know this, involves the WTA. Susan Junfish writes, she goes, the top percentage of players seem to win most of the tournament winnings. Has the WTA talked about distributing the money to more players so athletes can make a living? Have you guys, I mean, I don't know, Rosie, you might be in touch with WTA alumni.
Well, okay, but we're not part of the, unfortunately, we don't chat enough, but there's two questions. Repeat the first one.
Well, it's the top percentage of players seem to win most of the tournament winnings. Has the WTA talked about distributing the tournament money to more players so athletes can make a living? And
well,
I guess
I mean, to other players or tennis players?
Tennis players. So I think it's more redistribution.
Well, I mean, nothing's changed from having the top get most of the money and the bottom not. And, we went through that on our tour way back when. And so it's hard because, let's face it, the top players are the ones that are selling the tournament, getting the fans and paying the money. So, they're going to have to get the top of it. As to whether they can develop, I mean, I think they look at this, all the time and try and figure out a way to be fair, or find a way where they can put the money, if it's not in the middle, it's in the beginning. And, I mean, the US Open, all the Grand Slams go through that. Now you lose in the first round and you've already made, what, $200,000 or whatever. Yeah. So, that's going to be an ongoing thing, I think. But I don't know really whether the WTA talks to them and says you're making too much money. I don't think so.
Last question. I'll ask this for Kristy. This is from Ellen Carlton. Last question. How do you guys get along during the tour? How do you kind of hang together during that time, Kristy?
Well, that's an interesting question, because
staying united, yeah.
In general, I think women are tougher, stronger, more serious competitors than men. In other words, if I would lose to someone, I wouldn't talk to him for a few days. I can remember beating Judy Taggart-Dalton at one of the first Virginia Slims tournaments, and she was so mad she wouldn't talk to me for a while. And we were friendly with each other. But you had your doubles partner you traveled with. The first circuit I traveled with Denise Carter, and we were buddies. Another tournament, Rosie, do you remember playing in Oklahoma when
Yes, I do.
Okay, there's 16 of us.
No,
this is give you an idea how much tougher it was back then than it is today. Because today the top players would have chauffeurs for their team of nutritionalists and coaches, et cetera, right? Well, back then, I can remember in Oklahoma City, 16 of us had to share 4 cars. And whoever had the keys wouldn't give them to the other 3 people. Just kept the car keys for themselves. So there was always a little, little hostilities going on, but overall, I think there was a bond. And there's still a bond today with, I think most of us, we stay in touch, and I hear what people are doing. Rosie knows, because I named my dog, which I love my dog. I named my dog after her, my last. So,
that's
so
nice.
I gotta like her a lot to do that.
Thank you for thinking of me.
Rosie, I guess we want to ask you, and like Ellen's question, how did you manage to stay united? So maybe Rosie, you could say the last word on
look, I think the bond is there because we accomplished something together. And I think that's what makes it special. I think that's what going into the Hall of Fame as a group, and to be the first group. And we did fight for this. We did. We fought for the right to be recognized as a group that changed, made history and changed things, and not just women's tennis, but tennis and beyond, seriously, and beyond, because it entered into everything. So therefore, we should.
Well, we
Absolutely.
thank you for this. It's wonderful you're getting the Hall of Fame, so congratulations. And it's pretty neat that our club, our 115-year-old club, had its neat little role in it, everything from Gladys to a number of you to tournaments. So that's wonderful too. So thank you for that. Congratulations. The ceremony will be in July. So everybody keep your eyes tuned to Newport, Rhode Island.
Because they're going to Zoom too. So I'm pretty sure that they're going to have part of this on Zoom.
So that'll be great. So again, I want to thank you guys for taking the time for this.
Sure.
and taking time, and we appreciate it. So for everyone, good night and thank you.
And
Much
thank you,
thanks.
everybody. Thank you.
Much thanks to the
Bye-bye.
BTC.
Bye, Moose. Talk soon.
See you, Rosebud. Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye now.